All right, today we're diving into a foreclosure case that, honestly, is more like a high-stakes legal chess match. And this isn't just about a house. Nope. It's a fascinating look at what happens when procedural rules become weapons, when serious allegations start flying, and what happens when one person decides to take on the whole system. Let's jump right in.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll meet the players in this homeowner versus the machine showdown. Then we'll look at a really clever strategic first move. After that, things escalate with some serious allegations of misconduct. We'll dig into the actual rules of the game, then see how a procedural catch-22 led to some devastating results. And finally, we'll zoom out and look at the bigger picture this all points to.
Okay, so let's set the stage. At its absolute core, this case is about a self-represented homeowner going toe-to-toe with a very well-funded corporate legal team.
So on one side, you've got Jeremy Bass. He's the homeowner, and he's acting as his own lawyer. And on the other side, a group of corporate plaintiffs with an experienced professional attorney. Right from the jump, you can see this as a classic David versus Goliath setup. And that dynamic, well, it's going to shape everything that happens next.
And believe me, the stakes were incredibly high. This number, $305,000. That's the estimated equity Jeremy Bass was fighting to protect. This was about way more than just a legal principle. It was a fight to save his single biggest financial asset.
Now let's get into the strategy. Instead of just arguing the facts of the foreclosure, Bass did something really unexpected and, frankly, pretty sophisticated from a legal standpoint.
On this date, Bass filed a motion that completely changed the game. He wasn't just defending against the foreclosure anymore. He was going on the offense, officially challenging the professional conduct of the lawyers on the other side. He was accusing them of making improper statements that were damaging to his case.
Now, to really get why this was such a brilliant move, you have to understand this thing called the Rule 11 safe harbor. See, usually, if you want to call out an opposing lawyer for a bogus filing, you have to give them a 21-day grace period to just take it back. That safe harbor can be a huge problem when time is of the essence, you know?
So what did Bass do? He basically found a loophole. By asking for a judicial admonishment instead of Rule 11 sanctions, he totally sidestepped that 21-day delay. He was directly asking the judge to use the court's own built-in power to police lawyer misconduct. It was a gutsy, high-risk play for sure, but it was designed to get the alleged misconduct on the record without getting stuck in a procedural waiting game.
And from this point, things really heated up. What started as a procedural dispute quickly spiraled into direct and very serious accusations of professional misconduct.
I mean, just look at this timeline. You can see how fast it all happened. In a little over a month, we go from that first procedural motion to a full-on motion to strike. And on that same day, an absolutely explosive sworn statement from Basil. The whole thing was escalating at an incredible speed.
And Bass's motion to strike was not vague at all. It was super detailed. He laid out exactly what he saw as improper conduct, breaking it down into 4 main categories, rehashing the same old arguments, using inflammatory language to make him look bad, making up claims about financial harm, and just generally using obstructive tactics.
And this quote from his sworn affidavit, wow. This is some of the most direct and raw language you'll ever see in a court filing. He wasn't mincing words. He was flat out accusing the other lawyer of deliberately exploiting the fact that he didn't have counsel and turning the justice system itself into a weapon against him.
This really gets to the core of the fight over the story, right? The plaintiffs were trying to paint a picture of Bass as someone just maneuvering to get free rent. But Bass came back with receipts, literally, showing he was paying almost $1,400 a month for another place to live and a storage unit. It was a direct shot at their narrative.
And here's what's so important. Bass wasn't just yelling into the wind. He was grounding every single one of his allegations in the specific rules that lawyers are supposed to follow. Yeah, he actually cited the rulebook. He pointed to Idaho's rules of professional conduct, rules about being factually accurate, about being extra careful when dealing with someone without a lawyer, and rules against behavior that hurts the justice system. He even cited the civil procedure rule that lets a judge strike improper stuff from the record. This proves he'd done his homework and was building a real legal argument.
Okay, this is the turning point of the whole case. Bass had laid everything out, but the court's response, or really the lack of a response, created a kind of procedural catch-22 that ended up being just devastating for him.
The judge simply decided not to formally rule on any of Bass's motions about the other lawyer's conduct. And for Bass, that was a brick wall. All the issues he had so carefully documented were just left hanging, unaddressed. It created a vacuum, and the opposing story just filled it right up.
And the first consequence was an absolute gut punch. Because his allegations of misconduct were never considered, the court basically accepted the plaintiff's version of events. The judge declared Bass's entire defense frivolous, unreasonable, and without foundation. The next hit was financial. Since his defense was now officially frivolous, the court ordered Bass to pay the other side's attorney fees. That's a penalty of almost $10,000.
And this was the final blow. That one word, frivolous, was the legal key that unlocked the final door. It allowed the foreclosure to proceed, and just over a month later, Bass was physically removed from his home. It was a domino effect, all started by that one decision not to address his claims of misconduct.
So you might be asking, why focus so much on this one case? Because when you zoom out, you see it's a perfect example of a much bigger, systemic problem in our courts. The massive challenges that people without lawyers face every single day.
And look, Bass's situation is not some rare exception. According to the National Center for State Courts, a mind-boggling 75% of civil cases in this country have at least one person representing themselves. Think about that. Our entire system is designed with the idea that both sides have a lawyer, but that's just not the reality anymore.
So what's the bottom line here? What can we learn from this? First, that knowing the procedural rules can sometimes matter more than what actually happened. Second, the power imbalance between an individual and a corporate law firm is just a massive, massive hurdle. Third, so much of litigation is about who controls the story. And finally, our justice system is really struggling to catch up to the fact that most people simply can't afford legal help.
And that leaves us with this really fundamental question. This case shows a system where knowing how to navigate the complicated rules can be the difference between keeping your home and losing everything. So it forces us to ask, if procedure is allowed to win out over fairness, who actually has access to justice at all?